Hello, friends. Thanks for tuning in once again to the Corazon Substack channel. It's been a few days, a week or two actually, since the last interview, and I have a really nice surprise for you today. Ralph Benmergui, a name that was very familiar to me many, many years ago when I used to listen to a little bit more of CBC radio and watch TV. More of an internet guy now. So, Ralph, thank you so much for agreeing to come to our screen.
My pleasure.
You're so welcome, and I'm really looking forward to having a conversation. It's not so much a formal interview as what I like to call an authentic dialogue or just a conversation. And I may throw a little bit in myself and pick your brain. You can pick my brain if you want, and maybe together we'll discover some new frontiers, some new horizons.
That
So,
sounds nice.
yeah, so you're a very distinguished fellow, and I just remember the reason I reached out to you when I saw you on Facebook of all places, and I thought, wow, I remember years ago I used to watch TV sometimes, and you would often be on CBC, a different prime time, I think it was called, daytime, so many different shows over the years, and I always liked your personable style. You know, you just your voice, a handsome fellow. And you had a bit of a sense of humor always, and it was just so easy to listen to and to watch. And I liked your ideas too, the way that you articulated important things. So,
Well, thank you. It's
yeah,
very kind.
I'm sure you still have a bevy of fans out there.
A bevy. How many do you think a bevy is?
20 at least.
Yes, right.
I guess the ones that are
Look, here comes my bevy. Yeah,
my posse. Here's my
yeah.
bevy. Yeah.
I'm going to
Well,
stick with bevy. I'm doing bevy for a while. I like it.
I'm doing bevy well, thank you.
Yeah.
So as we get older too, I suppose some of them drop off, as we all tend to do. Speaking of which, you have written a book not that long ago, I believe, and I thought he was dead. Can you share a little bit what that's about? That's quite the title.
Um, it's a spiritual memoir, basically. I just thought there was something in me that wanted to talk about moving into autumn of life. And having been a public person and then really spending years not being a public person, I do a podcast, not that kind of rabbi. I've done, different things, but I haven't had a craving for the spotlight in any way. Right? I just don't think, oh, I need to keep reminding people I'm here. I just was doing the work I was doing.
Yeah.
And I liked it. I liked it like that, you know. The Hindus talk about being a householder and creating a life and having a profession and feeding and caring for people and all those things. And then you become a forest dweller, and you contemplate. And we don't really honor that very much in our society. So I wanted to just write down some ideas about that and about, the journey itself and how we tend to devolve into a conversation that's mostly about body parts. My eyes are going, my hip is gone, I got a new knee. That's what we describe as the journey, which to me isn't really. I mean, these are things because we live longer than we've ever lived, but that's okay. But I'm much more interested in the inner journey that we go through and the cultivating of wisdom, the ability to take what we have um, and do something new and interesting with it. And it's very hard to do in the older generation because age is not valued. It is devalued. I'm not going to buy four more cars. I'm going to buy one more car, and that'll be about it. So why bother with me? I don't have the transactional power that I had. So I'm much more interested in the spiritual journey of life while still trying to remain valid. So I did that, and um, it was good to put it down on paper. It was a good
Well, I'm
exercise.
glad you did. I can hardly wait to read it because it's a theme that interests me too, and I've really picked up as I age myself interest in the aging process. I'm a therapist, and I work with a lot of people on a lot of different subjects and themes. But being an elder now, I can't deny it any longer. um,
But then, see right there, the way we say I can't deny it, like, oh well, this horrible thing has happened. I might
yeah,
as well get
yeah. I
right.
was
And it
kidding
might
actually, but
no,
yeah,
no, I know, but it
but
but
it's
it's
true.
part of our cultural tropes.
It's true. Yeah, yeah,
My wife's a psychotherapist.
oh,
I'm a spiritual director,
yeah,
so I do spiritual counseling. She does psychotherapy counseling, as you well know,
yeah,
that sort of world.
right.
And yeah, you really hear about. I mean, it's really there's so many different things that can fill your heart. Like we go to a Dharma talk every Monday here in Hamilton, and right, the last sessions that we were in before the new year were about happiness, and that happiness can never come from the outside in
Hmm.
because it'll always be conditional on something happening.
That's right.
This makes me happy. Oh, it's raining. I don't like the rain. I'm not happy. Oh, this person didn't say hi to me at that party, and I knew they didn't like me. Now I'm not happy. And instead, having to really cultivate an inner equanimity
Yeah.
that allows you to, regardless of the situation, position yourself between the striking of the match and the fire being lit, where you don't have to react to everything around you. You're bringing something to it.
Mhm.
And they were talking about the notion of self-cherishing,
Yeah.
that I am the most important thing. And it's not like you have to be a huge narcissist to say it. We just actually think we are the most important thing because we are worried that our needs won't be met, that scarcity will be our life. So we want things to feed us and to continue to reassure us. But if we can move away from that to I am lower than everyone and thing around me, so I have to cherish them more than I cherish myself, then the happiness is in being something as opposed to wanting something. So I love stuff like that, you
Well,
know?
I remember reading about or hearing about the Dalai Lama the first time he came to the West. He reported after we went back to Darjeeling or Dharamsala,
Dharamsala, yeah.
Dharamsala, and he said, I was amazed how many people in the West are so full of self-hatred and
Yeah.
self-doubt. And in our culture, for various reasons, over over hundreds of years, we have developed a certain level of dysfunction, we could call it. So that principle of learning how to love ourselves, it's not an egocentric thing or selfish
No.
thing. It's a survival thing. And if we haven't done it before we've reached our golden years, then better now, better late than never. It's really important to find that value, not necessarily, as you say, from other people clapping the accolades of others, but finding our own coherence, connecting our physical body, which is still important, of course, with our emotional body and our mental, and then the spiritual, and finding some kind of an equanimity, as you say, so that they're working together as a team. And then we can quiet down from the noise of the world and listen more deeply to our true self, our authentic self, and also to the voice of God, you might call it, or the divine,
Yeah.
the infinite, which can hum through us um, and then find a way to serve that it will come from that inner relationship.
So let's jam here. When I say God,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Well,
And I'll tell you after what I think.
okay, well, I have no fixed definition. I don't know. Nobody really knows. Everybody has a bit of a notion. One of the in the Baha'i teachings, of which I am a member of Baha'i faith, one of the many, many, many names of the Creator is the the infinite essence, the unknowable essence. There we go, the
Right.
unknowable essence. So I like that one, but it changes from day to day. It depends on how well we're getting along. I have different names, but you go ahead.
So I mean, I don't know if you were brought up with this, but I was brought up with basically Santa God. So, it was a guy with a white beard
Yeah,
on
yeah,
a throne who had a naughty and nice list.
yeah,
And so God was watching me, and if I misbehaved, he knew, and that was trouble for me. So it was
yeah,
kind of like my parents getting a free lifeguard, that could watch me. But that fades with adolescence, and you can't just replace it with another transactional experience for me anyway.
yeah.
So for me, God is a verb,
Okay, right.
right? There's a wonderful book by Rabbi David Cooper called God is a Verb about Jewish mysticism.
Okay.
And God is a verb really says to me that what we are usually saying is God is a noun,
Mhm.
it's an entity. Um, and then you have to try to figure out, does this entity care about me and about this earth in a cosmos of 2 trillion galaxies?
Mhm.
That's an interesting question. Um, but for me, I see God as an action of perpetual creation
Yes.
and of the totality of everything. God is everything, and everything is God. I don't worship nature, but I connect to the sacred of nature so that I can worship.
It sounds like that God being a verb is more experiential, whereas a noun would be more like a fixed entity, more in the head.
Yeah. So, so God as a verb becomes, I am a microcell of that flow of creation, and my only job is to either be a healthy cell or a cancerous cell. And depending on the day or the hour, you know,
Yeah.
I can be really, I'm in it. This is great. And then 3 hours later, I'm a sarcastic, schmuck walking around bothering people. So, so
Yeah.
there's the challenge.
Yeah.
That's so, but God has become a four-letter word. It's like, you believe in God?
Yeah.
Like you're not allowed to say it.
Oh,
You
I don't,
have
yeah.
to
Well,
find euphemisms for it.
styles change. I heard recently from a couple of sources, a couple of friends heard it and then passed it on, and somewhere on the internet that there's actually a bit of a shift again of people in the first world, so to speak, North America and Europe, going back to religion a little bit. It's just the beginning, like the first
Hmm.
stage, after a century of secularism and eschewing everything about throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And as you say, God is a four-letter word, but there may be a little bit of a need because the world is really crumbling, the old world order as we've known it. So,
Yeah, but you got to be careful with that, I think, because then it's God as a lifesaver,
yeah,
and our job is to be
right.
here, and it's our gig to wreck this thing.
Mhm.
God's not wrecking the environment; we are,
Yeah,
because we
absolutely.
don't see it as sacred. We have what I believe is a crisis of sacredness, that we just don't actually hold each other sacred, and this earth that sustains us sacred, we see it as an extractive relationship. Martin Buber, the Jewish theologian,
Yeah.
I and thou and I and it, and we live in I and it. What can you, Hugh? What can you do for me?
Mhm.
Maybe if I'm really nice to you because I heard you have this connection to this person I really want to meet because I want to advance my whatever. That's just transactional and extractive. But if I'm I and thou with you, then I'm actually curious and know that I have a belief that there is at the core of everyone, including people you really have trouble with, is an incorruptible piece of soul, a
Yeah.
spirit.
Yeah.
And
I'm
that's the part that leads people
totally
to
with
die.
you there. At the base, there's a basic goodness in human beings. It gets pretty covered up sometimes, and some people
Yeah.
are a lot easier to love than others. But that's sort of our nature. It's who we are, where we come from. And I love that. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about Jewish mysticism, perhaps, or what kind of rabbi are you? Because your podcast is, I'm not that kind of rabbi.
Yeah.
I'm
Uh,
curious. Yeah.
so Jewish Kabbalah
Yeah.
is Jewish mysticism. The center of it was in a small town in northern Israel that spelled so it look in English it looks like Safed, but it's Sfat. So Sfat was the center where this kind of thinking really evolved. The idea was that no one could study it who wasn't, first of all, in that case, a male,
Right.
40 years old and married. If you weren't that, you couldn't study it because it was too powerful in the wrong hands.
Nice.
I'm not into all that. For me, this there is a very complex explanation, but the one that I use for myself and for other people is that there are four worlds that we live in.
Yeah.
So the first one, Bria, is the body. So when you wake up in the morning, you thank God that your body is working,
Mm.
literally. What should be open is open, what is closed should be closed. So you have gratitude for another day as a physical being. So Bria is that whole, how to move the body, how to create energy through the body. You
Is
can
that
attach that to the ideas of chakras and everything else, right?
there's a Hebrew word "chai," which means vitality, right? Is
Right, life,
life?
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The life,
Exactly.
l'chaim.
Yes.
That's our toast, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
there's the Bria, that's the body.
Okay.
Then there's Yetzira, and Yetzira is yearning,
Mm.
is the heart, right? So what is it? How do you cultivate that part of yourself in the heart, that soulfulness in your relationship to people and into the world? Um, and so that's sort of a high spiritual aspect, but you're still not in that highest realm. So then after Yetzirah is Bria, which is the mind. So when you look at the mind in the Buddhist belief, the mind itself is really the soul, is the whole person, right? It's not, just being brainy,
No. No.
right? Good at crosswords. It's a different thing. So in Bria, you want to cultivate a pureness of intention while thinking, right? And not just being reactive and all of those things. And then finally, at the end is Atzilut, which is the spiritual realm itself, the cosmological idea of creation. Matthew Fox, who was
Yeah. Christian.
yeah, he was I think no, Jesuit, I think. No, Franciscan.
Franciscan.
Um, anyway, he got excommunicated because he thought the church had devolved into Jesusolatry,
Uh,
right? And that it was the worship of Jesus. And he said, no, it's creation spirituality is what he wanted. And he created a whole world of creation spirituality um, to move us away from the idea that there is a duality to life. So with Kabbalah, you really, all of us have all those four worlds in us. Where do we tend to live? Do we tend to be people who live in our heads? Or are we somebody who's very emotional and deals from there? Are we somebody who understands the world by becoming a third degree black belt? And the physical becomes the spiritual. Are we constantly seeking the spiritual and up in the clouds? So head in the clouds, feet on the ground, heart in the middle, right? And a mind to work with all of that. So that's the simplest explanation of
Four is a good
Kabbalah.
number, and for the indigenous people, the number four is extremely significant. Like the four directions of the medicine wheel,
Right.
passing the pipe four times. Um,
The four winds,
yeah, exactly the
right?
direction. So Abdul Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah, said we need to walk the spiritual path with practical feet, expressing that principle
Right.
that not to neglect the physical world. That's where responsibility comes in, like a contract, taking care of our health, paying the bills, obeying the law, etc. But there does seem to be a bit of as you look through history, that at one time the majority of people seem to be more physical oriented. Um, you know,
Right.
war and working and labor, hard, long hours. And then a big part of the population is still sort of locked into the emotional plane. Um, and that's the one plane that we're not really taught much about as we're growing up because our parents don't really know how to regulate feelings either. But there is a tendency now with technology and science and philosophies for a movement into the mental sphere more and more. So a lot of people are in their heads all the time, especially with the internet and AI and so on. And then the spiritual realm is still sort of, except for a certain demographic, unknown territory. But the physical world, as you indicated, by needing to have that external approval, being obsessed with the body and everything that goes along with it, it's still like our culture is worshiping the god of materialism and money and
Yeah.
power. So how can we go through those four levels? Maybe they're connected, like a
Oh,
ladder.
they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
up the ladder towards the highest, not neglecting the others, bringing about the equanimity and the coherence, integration. But how can we bring more of the spiritual into our lives?
Well,
Or
I think it has to be a personal journey.
yeah,
I think if we're waiting for somebody to drive by with the right, get in the car, we're going, uh, then you really have abdicated the responsibility to cultivate your wisdom and your spiritual life. But I do think that, um, like we said before with the happiness piece, that the revolution will be internalized, right? Not externalized. I don't need the affirmation that somebody else is along for the journey. I need to be able to be curious about the journey enough to have the courage to take it. Because what we know, the misery we know, is better than the unknown in front of us,
yeah, yeah,
right? The Buddhists talk about suffering, right? And the Baha'is talk about the unity of all mankind. That this running around saying, "No, I'm from Moldavia. No, I'm from Romania." No, it's just like, guys, there's no lines on the ball. You know that, don't you? We're making this up. That one world idea is a beautiful thing, but for some people, it is within a religious piece. But the largest cohort is spiritual, but not religious. That's what
that's the
because
fastest growing.
no, they don't like, yeah, they don't like that a lot of religion for people is very disappointing. It holds them still. I mean, I have friends who are Baha'is, and we do lots of work together. I love them dearly. And 96% of what I've read, in the Baha'i faith, I love. But there's 4% that makes me go non-starter, can't do it, see you later. Um,
Not for
I
me.
have, you know, I, like for me, the non-starter is the same one in almost every religion, which is homosexuality.
Yeah.
I just think, sorry. And then my friends tell me, well, this is supposed to be for 1,000 years. And then after this, there'll be changes that could be made, but you can't change that. And, we bicker because there's so much about Baha'i that I just think, why aren't we doing all this? This is crazy. Get together every 19 days, have some really interesting conversations, think about the egalitarian nature of humankind if you do it properly. There's just lovely things about all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't need to own everything about everything. I need to figure out for me what's my path.
Mhm.
If I have people in my life who are gay, I see the God in them, and I see their way of life as completely legitimate as mine, and I see that they're beautiful. They hold love.
Of course, yeah.
So who am I? So, but this is what happens with religions, right? Is that people go, well, this is the user's manual for how to live my life.
Right.
Well, in Judaism, the Orthodox. The thing about orthodoxy is it gives you answers.
Hmm.
The thing about non-orthodoxy, it gives me questions. I'm much more interested in questions than I am in answers,
Oh, right. Of course, yeah. Yeah.
right? Like the Chinese say, to be uncertain is uncomfortable, to be certain is ridiculous.
Well, it's interesting. Speaking of the 19-month Baha'i calendar, each month has the name of an attribute of the divine, and one of the 19 months is called the month of questions,
Right.
which is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
because that's what you need is spiritual curiosity, not for me, not spiritual certainty.
right. Well, it's questioning, asking questions. Often they're far more important and telling than the answers that may come, and it's more of a creative act as well. Going back to that process of God being a verb, of getting
Yeah.
in there and like the being rather than the doing. Although doing is a verb too, of course. But
Well, I mean, look at our structure. The Sabbath is the 25 hours of being,
okay.
and the rest of the week is the doing.
All right. Yes.
So
Okay.
you light the candles and you say, okay, we stop the doing part where I got to do my errands and I've got to do this and I got to phone that guy and I got to get on my phone again and just say, let's just be
Yes.
and see what comes of that. I think the greatest gift Judaism has for the world is Sabbath. And I wish that we could all imagine if the whole world stopped using all this power, all this distraction, all these things for 25 hours together. Imagine what would happen,
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know?
I remember my grandfather was. I used to spend time in the farm when I was growing up near Wyerton, Ontario, and he was a very religious man, sort of puritanical, very good man, good to the bone. But he called Sunday the Sabbath, right? And
Right.
on the Sabbath, everything's shut down, and we might go to the lake for a swim, a little picnic, but it was just a very simple time. And the Muslims, I forget the word in Arabic, but they talk about remembrance, remembering the Creator, taking that time to slow down. So, circling back to aging, and I know that you have a workshop called Aging and Saging or something like that.
Yeah, aging to saging.
Aging to
Yeah,
Saging.
I'm doing one in February actually online. I'm the executive director of something called Aleph Canada. And Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph. Aleph Canada is the Center for Jewish Innovation and Renewal
Hmm.
in Canada, and in the States. It's a much bigger entity which does ordination of rabbis,
Wow.
cantors, and what I am, a spiritual director. So you get certified or ordained through the programs in the States. But we're doing a workshop with Aleph is doing it with the Jewish Renewal Synagogue in Vancouver, and you don't have to be Jewish to take it. But I'm calling it ageism to sageism,
Right.
um, because it's funny. I turned 70 this year,
Oh,
or last year in December. I turned 70,
okay.
and my wife at first said, "What do you want to do? It's a birthday with a zero. What do you want to do?" And I said, no, I don't want to do anything." She went, "What?" I said, "I don't want to do anything. Let's just, you and me, we'll go for dinner. It'll be that." She said, "Okay, what's going on here?" And I said, "I'm in this society, I'm a commodity. Who wants a 70-year-old commodity? Who's going to say, hey, I'd invest in this guy for the next 3 years?" They'll do it with a 47-year-old, but they don't realize that the 47-year-old's on the move. So they're going to dump them and keep going. And the 70-year-old has something to offer. So ageism is very real. The isolation and loneliness that comes from ageism is a profound effect on people over 65 or 60. Um, and I I want to work against that with people. There's a curriculum that we can do where we talk about how we feel about getting older. There's a way of taking an inventory of what our lives have been. And there's a way of renewing our purpose in a different way than we were before. Because, when we were in the middle of our high professional lives, we were busy doing all the things you do. And it was a much more material life. And now it's a chance to just become an elder,
Yeah.
not a senior with a discount at Shoppers, but an elder. And we don't respect our elders, you know?
Well, some of the elders do, but the youngins don't. Why aren't they sitting on the ground under the old apple tree and we're in a rocking chair and saying, "Grandfather, tell me about."
Because everyone's a peer.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I was running I was producing a show. I wasn't in the show. I was the producer of the show, and there was a lot of people on the staff. And I'd come into the office, and people say, "Hi, Ralph. Hi, Ralph." So this one kid, he's new, and I'm walking by him, and he goes, "Hello, Mr. Benmergui."
Mhm.
And I'm just about to go, "Oh, you don't have to call me." And I thought, no, I like that that kid just called me Mr. Benmergui because I've worked my whole life to get what I know to where I am. And I wouldn't mind somebody acknowledging me as more than, the guy that goes out for a beer with them. I'm not going out with a beer. I may have to fire you someday. You don't get it. There's a different thing going on here. And we
Absolutely.
flatten everything so that everybody's an equal. And we're not. It's just not
There's
who we
not.
are as people.
Do you remember Robert Bly, the American poet?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Sort of started the men's movement back in the 70s or
Absolutely.
whatever. Yeah, I used to lead men's workshops in the day. But
Yeah,
after that, he wrote another book. I think it was called The Sibling Society. But that was exactly the gist of it, is that
yeah.
part of our frustration and depression is that we're all brothers and sisters. There's no hierarchy. There's no respect. It's all whatever goes. We're all the same. So,
Yeah,
well, I wear this beard, white beard, with pride now.
yeah, but you know what? I have a friend who has white hair. He's a poet, writer,
Yeah.
wonderful guy. And I said, we were talking about getting older. And he said, when my hair turned white, I'd walk down the street that I'd walked down for years, and I was invisible.
Mm.
People just looked past me. And I realized, oh, my hair is white.
Mhm.
And it kind of, it was a very sad moment for him to realize that he wasn't going to be valued because in a transactional relationship, what have you got that I need? And wisdom isn't something that we think of. We think of stuff.
So when you go inside, Ralph, to that place, maybe the heart level even, or
Mhm.
the higher planes, and you have a talk with your authentic self and sort of look at yourself from the outside in, what would you say that you have? What is your most great value that you have for the world? For yourself, of course, too.
Mhm.
That seems to be well underway. But as far as service and as you say, things change a little bit as we get older. You're 70 now. What do you feel drawing you, or maybe you're right there in the middle of what feels right? Or
Um, Years ago, I was auditioning for a show. The show was called Midday.
oh, right.
And
Valerie Pringle.
yes, Valerie and I were hosts together for a period, 2 years.
Yeah.
I'd come from radio and I'd come from radio variety where things are funny and fun. And that was prime time. So I did the show prime time on radio was about show business. And I'd done stand up in my early 20s. And, I came from all this, but I had a serious side. And I went in for the interview with Mark Starowitz, who was the executive producer of the Journal and Midday. And he said, um, first he said to me, um, "You were a stand-up comic for a period of time?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, about 8 years." And he said, "Well, that wasn't serious, was it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, it's kind of how I ate and paid the rent. So yeah, it was pretty serious." And they sort of blew past that one. But my friend had given me a line to say if this came up, and I said it, and I said, having a sense of humor is having the sense to know when to use your humor. And that seemed to placate him, and we moved on.
Mm.
And then he said, "Well, why do you do what you do?"
Yeah.
And I just blurted out to conquer the feeling of separateness.
Ah,
And I think that's still what I'm on about. It's that I don't believe we're separate. I believe we're all manifestations of the same thing,
I'm with you there, brother. Yeah.
right? So I guess that's
But
how I see it.
it's painful. It's like that. The In Buddhism, they talk about, as you said, suffering and everything. There's
Yeah,
suffering for every being. So there's the necessary suffering, which there's a fair amount of, and then there's the unnecessary suffering, which is what Chogyam Trungpa calls the neurotic crimes. That we
right.
make ourselves sick, worrying and obsession.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anxiety, depression.
But perhaps the greatest pain is that sense of separateness. It's because
Yeah,
ultimately that the instinct for survival, which goes right to the center of us in many ways, species as well, and race and tribe included sometimes, family. Um, but when that kicks in, that oh my God, I'm in danger of going extinct. That's when that need to connect with
right.
another person, or others, to share that real authentic connection comes up. How did you put it?
Conquering the feeling of separateness.
Conquering the feeling of separateness. Beautiful.
So for me, it was the job was to become able to communicate efficiently with people the things that I'm thinking. So that's one way of conquering separateness is being able to articulate something where people go, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. It's like I'll read something somebody's written and just think, man, I wish I would have thought of it that way. That was so well put. That's killing me. I love it, right? Because that's a gift some people have. So I had to know what I was good at. I remember when I was doing my training for spiritual directing, we once every 4 or 5 months we'd get together in person and then go back to online learning after that, virtual workshop and classes. So we're all there together, and somebody said, what do you fear most about yourself? And I said, I fear my ability to communicate. And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, oh, I'm very good at it. I can convince me and maybe even you of something, even if I don't believe it.
Yeah.
So I have to be careful not to use it so that people will go, oh, I'm okay now. I feel assured this person knows what they're smart. They're good. So I said, so for me, it's about remembering to not let this become another one of my, well, you're a therapist, one of my IFS parts, right? One
Right.
of my internal family systems parts that says, oh, you're the smoothie. And the
Yeah.
other one says,
Well,
you're actually a putz,
you
right?
sweet talking. Well,
You're sweet talking.
it's a power for sure. And uh, it's forked
So
tongue. White
you
men
have to,
speak with forked tongue. That
yeah, no,
classic
but
line from the Western movies.
you have to blend in your real true humility,
Yeah.
because humility, there's a practice in Judaism, musar, which is about 18 soul traits that you can pick from: patience, silence, order, all these different things. Alan Marinas, a Canadian, wrote a wonderful book, Everyday Holiness, about musar. And what you do when you're working with people in my line of work is you pick one, and for 2 weeks they journal, not, oh, I tried to be patient. Just notice where is patience and impatience in your life. And then after the 2 weeks, we come back together, we talk about that. And you go through these, you pick 13 of these so that you can go through them 4 times in a year
Uh-huh.
and come back to another one and another one. So doing stuff like that really allows you to uh, zoom out and look at the different pieces.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just learning now. Um, my wife knows all this stuff. She's a psychotherapist, but I'm reading Richard Schwartz's first book on internal family systems because she keeps talking to me about it. And now he's talking about spirituality and IFS,
Yeah.
that he believes that at its core, it is a spiritual practice, IFS.
Yeah.
So he's got a course he's going to offer. I'll take it. I'm reading the book. I'm almost finished. so that I have a basic, small understanding of it, not a practical one. But I want to hear where spirituality is entering it for him. And I would guess, my guess is that with Schwartz, he got to a point in his own life where, look, for all of us, it's the Peggy Lee song. Is that all there is?
Yeah.
Remember that song?
That all
Is
there
that
is,
all?
my friend.
Then let's keep dancing, let's break out the booze and have a ball, if that's all. It's an existential pop song. It's fantastic. But that's what we worry about. Is this all for naught? Why am I here? These are the great questions. And now that I have your attention, what is it I want to say? What have I filled myself with? You know, that's the challenge.
In the Hakomi method, I don't know if you've heard of it. Hakomi
Hmm.
psychotherapy and self-inquiry. It's beautiful, mindfulness-based, somatic, and Schwartz is a good friend of Hakomi. In fact, we gave workshops at the same Hakomi conference several years ago,
Oh,
Boulder,
cool.
Colorado. Yeah, and there's this thing called the missing experience that every person usually has something that was missing growing up.
Hmm.
Might have been safety or positive
Hmm.
attention or love, time,
Hmm.
and touch. And then if that isn't somehow healed or filled, then there's that continual longing or confusion at times. So I think that another version of the missing experience is just what you've delineated, which is that after we've been around the block, been around the world, been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, drank the Kool-Aid, whatever, it's like,
Hmm.
okay, there's something really important that I haven't got to yet, and
Right.
it's starting to itch, you know.
Yeah.
So we start scratching a little bit, and then finally we start a path of seeking and looking under every stone, and it's got to be here somewhere. And then we get a clue, we read a book, we meet a person, or we have a dream, or one of those slightly spiritual experiences out of the body, maybe, and then that gets us really excited, and then confirmations start to come. So just before we wind down, and I'd love to speak with you for about 5 hours, actually. But for the viewers, I try to keep these, a manageable time frame. But I was interested by the Jewish Renewal,
Yeah.
going back to the Aleph organization of which you're the director.
Yeah.
Wow, it's an important position.
Well, I
Yay!
don't exactly have 100 people sitting behind me right now, but
Your
um,
your bevy.
yeah, my baby, that's right. I got to use that one. Yeah, so olivecanada.ca is the website, and it's kind of the introduction to things for people. And what we're really trying to do is for all those people, for instance, who say they're spiritual but not religious,
Mhm.
I hear them loud and clear that we need a spiritual path back to what we are. So I'll give you an example, and this would have been the same if it was a Latin mass, but in Hebrew, we use Hebrew still as a sacred language in prayer. So you're in a synagogue, it's near the end of the service, which is 3 hours plus. Uh, I had a friend who was a churchgoer, and he came to one of my son's bar mitzvahs. And so, it starts at 9, but really people start showing up, most of them at 10. But anyways, he showed up at 9 because he said, well, it says starts at 9. So by 12:20, it was finished and we could go and eat. Uh, and he said to me, my God, how the hell do you people do this every Saturday? I mean, we're like an hour and a bit and we're out. That's church. We're good,
Wham
you
bam,
know?
thank you, man.
Yeah. And you guys are like, get up, sit down, get up, sit down.
Mhm.
So anyway, there's a prayer that goes, Shreya Shrevetecha, Odya Hallelujah, Selah. And then the congregation responds, Shreyam Shkachalo, Shreyam Shadonai Olahav. And then you do this in couplets eight more times. So 18 times you do this together, and it's prayer. If I stop someone in the middle of it and say, "Excuse me, do you know what you're saying? Like literally in English, do you know what you're saying?" And they would say, "No." But I'd say, "That's okay. I'm just asking. And why do you do it?" if you don't even know what you're saying? And they said, because I've done it my whole life. It's really comforting. I
Mhm.
said, totally get it. Totally get it. But let's try something. I'm going to take the first line minus the last word, and we're going to do it together slowly. And then I say, Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha Odi Hallelujah Odi Hallelujah. Now we're going to do that for 3 to 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And when we finish doing that, they have had a spiritual experience.
Ah,
When you do it the other way, they've had a cultural experience. This
yeah.
is where I come from, this is what we do, right? But it's devoid of that Yetzirah, that heart.
Well,
That
in 30 seconds, I was getting into the zone there with you chanting that. It was beautiful. You have a nice voice, but I could sense that your connection with it.
yeah, and we are all there, but we're not given the tools. So with renewal, we are basically the innovation factory for Judaism. And what we want to be able to do in the States, Aleph is about ordaining people as much as it is anything else. But it's about the cultivation of a new culture of feeling, spiritually feeling your faith instead of being of a team,
Beautiful.
right? So Jewish renewal is an attempt to have people get out of their heads and into their hearts. And then what use then is what you're doing as a Jewish person. Otherwise it's mechanical, like everything else we've done. I blame Descartes. He blew it for all of us, and everything became
I
but
am.
mechanical. Yeah, but more than that, it was that uh, only humans have a soul. So he literally took his wife's dog and eviscerated it and killed it in front of a class to say this dog is not dying because it has a soul. It's just physical reactions. So it was the mechanical that mattered. And that's where we are now, which is why we're willing to destroy the Mother Earth that we live on, is because we do not see the soulfulness of everything around us.
Mhm. Exactly. It's a time of, I mean, there's one part that's holding on strong to the old patriarchal force, might is right. And then there's a growing new renewal, so to speak. It
Right.
reminded me of the time we're in like an elastic band. If you pull the two ends farther and farther apart, it creates more and more tension until it snaps. And it almost feels like everybody's talking about it. There's been so many movies out of Hollywood the last few years about the end of the world, the
Yeah.
collapse of the economic system, and the environment. Oh yes, I noticed that you're also involved with environmental. Uh,
Oh, yeah. Years of that.
Beautiful.
Talk about banging your head against the wall.
Yeah, it's so heartbreaking, and it feels like what can an individual do? But I have a question about Judaism at this time. Where the Jewish community, well, everybody, of course, is going through it, but the Jewish community is going through a kind of a testing period, we might say.
Mm.
How do you see what you're doing, your form of service within your spiritual, religious community, vis-a-vis uh, the architecture of the world process, the community of
Yeah.
nations, and what's going on in Israel and Palestine, and anti-Semitism, and et cetera, et cetera. Do you?
Yeah. So I wrote a piece in Facebook last week that had, I don't know, I looked at it today and there was about 120 people who had responded to it and a fair amount who had commented, which was interesting. But what I was saying was th that piece that I was talking about happiness, it's the same thing, that the revolution has to be internalized, that there's something in Judaism called tikkun olam, repair of the world.
Mm.
But my belief is that you have to do tikkun hanefesh first, repair of the soul,
Mm.
so that when you come to the work of repairing the world, you come with a better heart. So if you come with a see, it's ironic. I wrote this, and everyone was very nice about it, about the comments. And then one person, a Jewish person, an Orthodox Jewish person, you're a traitor. You're not a Jew.
Oh,
You don't understand what Donald Trump is doing. It's all great. He's with us, and you're not with us, and you're a disgrace. So everything about not having done Tikkun HaNefesh, because she could have still disagreed with me. But if she had done, I believe, if she had done the internal work of repairing the soul so that you can cherish others more than yourself, that she would have been able to say the same thing with love.
that's right.
But she didn't. She said it with hatred in her heart. So for me, I do not want to be one of the people with a placard on one side of a sidewalk calling you an idiot because you don't believe what I believe. So I don't think any of that's helping anybody. It never has. So for me, it's more about let's just work on our inner life so that we have something really beautiful to offer the world. And that's a hard enough job, man. I fall short every day in such obvious and silly ways. Just like, really, you didn't have the patience to say that to your kid in a nice way? You had to be sarcastic?
Oh, it's so easy to fall off the wagon.
Absolutely,
You're
because
humble, right?
yeah, we're also very afraid of scarcity, that we're not going to have enough of it, anything. So we hoard, we hoard. So that's what I think. I think, work on yourself. That's more than enough work.
There's a Chogyam Trungpa is one of the teachers I
Yeah.
like from Tibetan Buddhism. You've heard of him? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, oh, great. Yeah. So there's a book called Shambhala, the Spiritual Warrior, and I was writing a chapter to a book on Chiron, which is the mythology of the centaur and the wounded healer, as Jung put.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it's just book's just coming out this month actually.
Oh, great. I can't
It's
wait.
it's been published. It's called Sideways from Saturn. But anyway, so I go deep, deep, deep into the whole mythology and the astronomy, the astrology, and the psychology of the archetypes that Chiron embodies. But one of them, besides the wounded healer, which is the one he's known by most, which is great for psychotherapists to know about that. But another one is the sacred warrior. And
Mhm.
Chogyam Trungpa says that the true sacred warrior, although might be scared shitless a lot of the time, nonetheless is able to have the courage to go through the fear and never be farther away than a hair's breadth from tenderness, sadness, and vulnerability.
Beautiful.
When you talk about revolution, spiritual revolution, and the inner revolution of the mind and the spirit, it's not for sissies, or it's a hard job. It's a big revolution, and it's pretty damn exciting. But to honor those qualities of softness, and which is part of the Mother Earth, the feminine, which is
Yeah.
coming in stronger now. Thank goodness, a little bit finally.
Well, yeah, that's huge because in Judaism, on a Friday night, you turn towards the door at the back to welcome the bride of Sabbath.
Right.
And that's the divine feminine, the Shekhinah.
Yes.
And what is acknowledged at that point is that we have exiled the divine feminine, and the work is to reintegrate the divine feminine into the world we live in, which is the divine masculine
That's
without its anchor.
beautiful. Once in Ashland, Oregon, many, many years ago, there was a very new age rabbi there, and there were a lot of healers and artists, and they actually have a Shakespearean festival there. But it was one Friday night, and we had an evening together. Various people came along, and he sort of orchestrated the evening about the welcoming the bride, the Shekinah. It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Judaism is so old. It must be, what, 3,000 years at least? What?
Well, the calendar is 5,000,
Okay.
but it's it has such different iterations over the millennia that For a long time, there was no such thing as a Jew.
No.
There was a Hebrew,
Oh,
even in Egypt, they were Hebrews.
yes.
And, intermarriage with those around them was completely normal.
Mm,
Moses's wife was not a Hebrew,
mm.
right? His father-in-law was a Mittite and actually gave him great advice. Um, but at that point, it was the formation of a consecrated religious order, and that had not happened up until then. It was really what was the unifying factor was the single deity, the monotheism. That's what made it different from everything around it,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah, Judaism and then Zoroaster.
Yeah, that's the other one that's
Really that
forever.
tradition of and then Abraham and the Abrahamic religions. Yeah, but those cultures, there's the Fertile Crescent, and then there was
Yeah,
Egypt, the Nile, the Delta, and then there was Mesopotamia, and then the Indus Valley, India,
yeah.
Hinduism, and they were already the same latitude, not that far apart. And amazing civilizations started to blossom almost simultaneously.
Now, is that because we don't know enough about the indigenous cultures that we ignored? The
Well,
history books that talked about just Western European and biblical history? Because I have to think that the indigenous wisdom and spirituality aren't given its due, you know. Um,
shake. They're not given a fair shake. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they had
you
their
know,
prophets and their whole systems of esotericism and
yeah, wisdom keeping and uh, not pantheism, panentheism, that they didn't worship the tree.
no, of
They acknowledged the sacredness of the tree,
course. Yeah,
but they worship the creator.
yeah. Yeah, well, the whole planet really has indigenous Africa, Korea, even in Europe. There were um, a couple thousand years ago. There were indigenous people, tribes, and they had nature
Oh yeah,
religion. Yeah, so we
and
all.
Celtic religion,
Yeah, exactly. That's most of my
fantastic
history.
stuff. I love that stuff.
Northern
Yeah.
Ireland. Yeah, yeah. Well, Ralph, it's been a real slice. Thank you so much. Very rich and co-creative, our conversation. Very stimulating. And underneath the video that will appear on Substack, I could put your website and
Please do. There's two. There's olivecanada.ca
wait, I
for
just wrote
olive,
that down during our conversation. So I'll put that
and
there.
yeah, and ralphbenmergui.ca
Yeah.
for spiritual direction, for my book, for blog posts and things like that.
And then once a month, you have a 1 day workshop online, right?
No, I have a workshop coming up. That's you can see it on the front page of olivecanada.ca on ageism to sageism.
Yeah.
That'll be four. For 1 night a week for 4 weeks,
Okay.
right? And in February into late February into March. So
Sounds
I'm
like
hoping people connect with that.
sounds like a beautiful midwinter project.
Yeah,
The
hope
winter
so.
in the speaking of the indigenous chronology in the medicine wheel, the winter is in the north, and very
Hmm.
apropos, the color is white, and
Hmm.
the buffalo is and the deer are the totem animals, and the buffalo represents abundance and prayer, and so the winter is a time, and it's also the last part of life. So like the spring, which
Hmm.
begins, and the equinox is youth, and then the summer is early adulthood.
Yeah,
Yeah. So for aging and saging and the winter season, light a candle, get a nice cup of tea, cozy up to your computer screen, and spend some time with Ralph.
thank you, Hugh. That's very kind of you.
Yeah, maybe I'll
I've
join.
really enjoyed this. It's been a very good conversation. I hope we can do it more.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to close it here and just stay on for a minute. I just want to say goodbye to you in person again. So just, bye, everybody. Hasta la vista. Shalom.
Hasta luego.